You are Locked On Hawks Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good evening, and what an evening it has been, Hawks fans. As you know, another victorious night. I feel like we were entering a season where we weren't going to be able to say that too many times. Well, guess what? I'm always the first person to be admittingly open to being super wrong. And it's always really good, as I say here on this program every time, that it feels really good to be really, really wrong. 119-104 win for the Atlanta Hawks over the Milwaukee Bucks on the road, not just because, but also now on a 5-game win streak. And actually, this was a game of win streaks where they actually knock off the team with the longest win streak in the NBA, that being the Milwaukee Bucks, obviously, who I think was on a 7-game win streak, something along those lines. Got my dude Alex, man, that's joining me on the evening. Really appreciate him for jumping in with us and shooting a little breeze, man, talking about these Atlanta Hawks. Make sure that you go and follow him at HawksFanTV, social media, also HawksFanTV.com, content creator, contributor, the whole nine over there, and always coming with some really good stuff. Gonna break down a really interesting show for you guys on today. Talk a little bit about the culture for the Atlanta Hawks, how that appears to be kind of changing just a little bit, and also something new that we call Hawk for Thought, a very interesting segment where we'll kind of pick Alex's brain a little bit. Last and certainly not least, get ready to welcome Showtime. Yep, the Los Angeles Lakers. That could only mean one thing: LeBron James coming to town at State Farm Arena. But before we get into any of that, want to make sure that I remind everyone that this particular episode of the Locked On Hawks POSTCAST is brought to you by Game Time. Today's episode sponsored by Game Time. Make sure you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a $20 off for your first purchase. Alex, man, a great game. Especially if you're an Atlanta Hawks fan, seems like they were couldn't miss, man. It was like throwing the rock in the ocean from the boat pretty much. And it just really seemed like they were just clicking on all cylinders. Every time I say, that I think that this team has had the best game of the season, they end up showing me up with another great game. What did you see out there tonight? What did you think you would see? What do you think that the team needed to do in order to add a number to the left side of the result column?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely going to be a tough game, DeShaun. The Bucks obviously won 7 in a row coming into tonight's matchup, and it was on the road. So we needed all-star performances from our top guys, and I think we got a lot of that. Trey, Trey's doing Trey things. He's leading the league in assists, so he's obviously kind of taken a backseat scoring-wise to what we're used to seeing, but he's still doing a great job, setting up his teammates. So 17-7, I'm happy with that. But really, I think the biggest difference was, well, for one, DeShaun, I loved how we didn't get rattled especially in the first half, right? Like the Bucks were getting a very, very favorable whistle, especially Giannis, man. I felt like every time he was driving into the paint, because he has no handles and he has no dribbling skills, he would just go into the lane all willy-nilly, and the refs would blow the whistle. But I like how we stayed composed. I liked how they didn't let that get, into their heads. And, we could have easily thrown a fit and kind of gotten thrown off our game, but we stayed composed and we just did what we had to do. I think the biggest difference makers tonight were obviously Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter, and Bogey off the bench. And that was really the key difference, in my opinion. Our bench, DeAndre and Bogey outscored the entire Bucks bench just by themselves. So I think that was a big difference. And I know the bench mob has been a huge, huge difference maker ever since we got healthy these last few games in our win streak. So Dre and Bogey continued that trend tonight. And then Jalen Johnson being Jalen Johnson, man. I mean, what more can I say about him? 23, 13, 5, 2, and 1. He's been putting up those types of numbers all season. And at this point, I don't even bat an eye every time I see Jalen do what he's doing anymore, because I kind of feel like we all expect that from Jalen now that he's really taken that leap. The question is, can he keep it up for a full 82? I think we can. And he's just getting better and better, more confident, more comfortable as the season progresses. So I'm really pleased with what I saw from tonight.
One of the most productive benches in the whole NBA, I would say. And I think most people would agree. And I think that there's surprising a lot of people. As I said at the beginning of the show, I always raise my hand and say, yep, that would be me. Not because I didn't see the Atlanta Hawks maybe going on a similar run to the one that they're currently on, but because of the fact that I didn't see them going on one this early. And I know that people are, kind of chomping at the bit and can't wait till we start talking about that meeting as they try to compete for the Emirates Cup for the NBA in-season tournament. And we're definitely going to get into that later on in the week. However, you mentioned a couple things, Jalen Johnson, our expectations for him, with that breakout season that he had on last year. One of the things that kind of had me curious about him was like, this doesn't typically work out as well as it has so far this season for Jalen. When somebody has the bullseye on their back, you're not surprising anybody in that second year after you've done what you've done the year before. He has just kind of picked up where he's left off at pretty much for the most part. And even more so, being a Wisconsin native, kind of figured he was going to have a great game. I mean, listen, him getting out on some of these breakaway dunks, you got to give credit to the defense of the Atlanta Hawks. They're second in the league in steals. Obviously, Dyson Daniels has a big part to do with that, but it's been infectious energy by Dyson and getting all the guys to get in there and play a little bit of defense and going after loose balls and creating second chance points, getting on the floor after loose balls and doing all the little things that I don't think we saw a ton of from the Atlanta Hawks. And that's why we kind of labeled this talking about a culture change perhaps within the Atlanta Hawks. And that's why they made the moves that they did, making a move on DeJounte Murray. Not that he was a bad defender by any stretch of the imagination, but to go and get guys that were taller, longer, athletic, and kind of willing to really not have to worry so much about scoring the ball on the offensive end, but more so on the defensive end, really being their primary focus. That being said, looking at some of these different things that you talked about, I mean, listen, the Hawks did really well in the first half, obviously, and you knew inevitably that at some point the Milwaukee Bucks was going to make a run. They kind of started to do that in the third quarter, but I just love the fact of how persistent and consistent that the Atlanta Hawks were, especially on the defensive side, both sides. The balance is mainly the biggest thing as far as I'm concerned. To how well that they were doing and how well that they were going to play, and they kind of set the tone. They made Milwaukee kind of play their game. I don't know if you were on the same page as far as I was, Alex. To be honest with you, I thought they kind of had to keep Bobby Portis in check and not allow him to get into kind of like a Bobby Portis type of mode, crazy eyes between him and Gary Trent. How critical do you think that was to kind of keep those guys in check in terms of their bench, not just the starters of guys like Dame and Giannis?
Yeah, I mean, we know is better than anyone, DeShaun. Like, whenever we go up against a team, it's always the unsuspecting, culprits that always burn us for some reason. You'll have some random ass role player, excuse my language, random role player just, go crazy on us. And, tonight, like you mentioned, I figured maybe one of Bobby Portis, maybe a DeLon Wright revenge game, something like that, or a Gary Trent Jr. But luckily we kept them all in check. I thought maybe, like you said, in the third quarter when they cut it down to single digits, we were up by like 18 points in the third quarter, and then they cut it down all the way to like 8 or 9, I believe. And then you saw that little scuffle between Bobby Portis and DeAndre, and I thought maybe that's going to be like a little motivation for the Bucks because you started to see them make a run at that same time. But luckily we kept our composure. The team still, did what we needed to do on offense. We executed and we scored. So yeah, all in all, that was special, right? Like, we already knew Giannis was going to do his thing. We knew Damian Lillard was going to get his points because during their win streak, Dame has started off the season slow, but he's really started to come together these last 7 games for them. And he did that again tonight, right? Only took 14 shots, still scored 25 points. But I loved how we just kept all the other role players in check. It was basically Giannis and Dame versus the Hawks, right? And like Taurean Prince didn't do anything. Brook Lopez, hit 1 3. That was basically about it. Andre Jackson Jr., who I haven't seen play ever in my entire life, he only scored a bucket. So yeah, I'm happy with everything. I think the culture, like you said in that first bullet point, is starting to shift, right? Like we don't look like a team that's just going to bend and break. We keep our composure. We're building confidence. The guys are playing for each other and with each other, and you see it. It's infectious, like you mentioned on the sidelines. This team the vibes are up right now, man. So it's a good week to be a Hawks fan.
I'll mention this real quick before we get ready to go cut to a break and pay some bills here in a quick second and come back for our second segment. But you know what? You mentioned something about the random role player, and I'm not sure if that's just you making that up in your own head or if you've been listening to this program, because that's something that me and Tanisha seem to talk about all the time, is allowing this one guy who hardly nobody ever knows his name be able to go out there and get buckets and just have like this career game. I think, who was it a couple nights ago? I think Eves Missy or something like that had a really good game against the Hawks. He had his career high 23 points. He's a rookie and all this. Nobody knows a lot about this guy, but it's always seemed to be those random role players. So that's a good eye by you. And of course, appreciate everybody for chiming in with us. Of course, you can too here on the comment section. Grateful for everybody that gets a chance to come in here on the program and show some love. We're going to get ready to pay some bills here on the other side of the break. We're going to kind of pick Alex's brain a little bit, talk a little bit about this new segment that we have here called Hawk for Thought, right here on the other side of the break. What time is it? Game time. Who? Yeah, everybody remembers where they heard that for the very first time. And when you purchase tickets with Game Time, you will always remember it too. I remember my first time purchasing. It was so easy and simplified, nothing overly complicated. All my friends were so impressed by how it was so easy to navigate with only the lowest prices guaranteed. Virtual views of the game from our 2B seats and top-tier customer service. If you're anything like my mom and have a ton of questions, there's no better place than Game Time to go and purchase those tickets. So take all the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. Make sure you let them know that we sent you for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply, however. And again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And tonight's episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is also brought to you by Prize Picks, where for as little as 4 correct picks, you can also earn up to or win up to 100 times your money. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, the sunny Sunshine State of Florida, the Longhorn State of Texas, and of course in Georgia, where me and Alex both reside from. So, when you have this Prize Picks whom put their members first, so all the withdrawals are fast, they're safe, they're also secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Invented the flex play as well, which means that you can still cash out on your lineup, even if it's not perfect. You can double your money, even if one of your picks do not hit. So there's so many different ways, opportunities, benefits to sign up with Prize Picks. I know a lot of people have been talking about it, but don't just talk about it. You know what to do. Also, be about it. It's the best place to put in those picks. And remember to download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Game Time app today and use LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Alex, it's become evident that there's a couple things that have kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to us. I think one of those things you kind of hinted about in the first segment, talking about Trae Young and how his game has kind of changed a little bit. Not something I expected to see after getting rid of DeJounte Murray and making a couple other moves. I'm like, oh yeah, people have been complaining about Trae Young shooting the ball with 17 seconds still left on the shot clock from the logo. You're going to see more than enough of that this year. We haven't seen nearly as much of that. Why do you think that is? And just it appears that it's just been so much more beneficial. He appears to be growing. People talked about his immaturity, his shot selection, all these different things. And it seems like it's not only working out well for him, it's changed a little bit, and it's also resulting in some wins. Why do you think that is? And how do you, kind of talk about the growth within his game?
Yeah, DeShaun. I think it's twofold. Number one is like that maturation that you mentioned. He's what, 27 now? Is he 27 or is he still 26?
He's pretty close to that.
Yeah, if he's not 27 already, I'd imagine he's on the cusp, about to be 27. But yeah, it's year 7 for Trae, year 7 in the league. And this is typically the age for when most players, start to hit their prime, is in that 26 to 30 range. And we're now seeing Trae kind of really ascend into his prime. And yeah, I know everyone thought he was going to still continue his 30-point per game type of mark that we're so accustomed to seeing. And in years past, we needed that, right? We didn't have, a plethora of talented players that can get us double-digit scoring consistently on any given night. And so I think, I got to give credit to Landry, the trade with, DeJounte and Dyson and Larry Nance, things like that. That was good because I just think a player like Dyson fits the team better. Not to say DeJounte wasn't a great player, because, I'm still a fan of DJ. But for the type of team we need and the type of backcourt that Trae needs as his partner, you need kind of like that defensive-minded first type of player. And I think that's exactly what Dyson has done. So I think the roster construction is just better. And I think Trae trusts his team more because, there's more talent, right? And we've seen players step up. We've seen Jalen really kind of come into his own in year 4. We've seen, Dyson Daniels improve greatly. We've seen, DeAndre Hunter really play the best he's ever played in his whole career.
Yeah, we have.
So when you factor in all those different things, I think Trae's comfortable. But also, too, is I know Quinn really made that a focal point in the offseason. And I believe there was a quote from Quinn Snyder. There was some sort of chatter about how Quinn wanted Trae to really kind of maybe focus more on the passing and really just talk to him and say, hey, we don't need you to, take 50 shots a night for us. Like, we have a good team. Just trust your teammates and good things will happen. And Trae's really fully bought into that role from what I've seen. And, he's not forcing shots. He doesn't really care about the points. And Trae has always said from his rookie year, an assist is his favorite stat. Mm-hmm. So I'm really starting to see that. At first, I didn't believe it because, I'm just so used to Trae
being Trae. Yeah.
But Trae really has taken that kind of pass first mentality. And we're now even seeing other players really start to run the offense, like a Jalen Johnson, some nights Dyson, and whoever it may be. But yeah, I think Trae is realizing at this time of his career, it doesn't really matter about how many points he scores. Can the team win, right? Can the team win? I know the discourse and the agenda his whole career is he puts up empty stats, and, he had a one fluke playoff run. But now it's starting to translate into wins, and now we're above 500. And if he can just keep this pace up for a whole 82 games and our team can stay healthy, I think we have a good shot to be a top 4 seed in the East.
I'm glad that you mentioned many of those things, especially within talking about Trae, because, another thing that Trae has always kind of talked about was he's here to win. I think he made it pretty clear, I think, over the offseason, where he kind of said, listen, I want to be here. Let me make this very clear. I want to be here. However, I want to win. And if, the franchise essentially or front office or whomever, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, is not on the same page with, that outlook that I have, then I got to do what I got to do, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily see that as a threat. He's always been a competitor, a hell of a one, if you just ask me on my opinion, right? And from that standpoint, they're finding ways to do that. to do exactly that. And I don't care what it looks like. It doesn't have to look like the most amazing thing. It doesn't have to look like the old, highlight factory and all this stuff about just necessarily throwing lobs and scoring a bunch of points and shooting long range threes and everything else. So I definitely want to, kind of wake that up as well, that, the fact that I was always kind of curious to know, like, people always say in order for them to win something and compete for something serious, he's going to have to change his game. A lot of people, including myself in some cases, only in some, was kind of curious, like, who can be that coach to get him to buy into that kind of system? Not sure that it would be Quinn, but I thought that Quinn, amongst all the coaches that were out there when they were looking for one, was the one that had the best chance. And now him getting a chance to kind of settle into that role and whatever. And we're not trying to play radio or TV here. We're just, calling it as we see it. We don't play that on this program. But the reality is the fact that I wasn't sure if that was something that they were going to be able to find. They found it. He's locked in. He's kind of talked about being a pass first point guard, and he can still score when they need him to score a bucket, getting everybody else involved. So I think that that's pretty cool too. A couple different questions, man. Just one or two more before we move on to the next segment. Appreciate my dude Alex, man, for being here, joining me. Really grateful to have him here again, creator and contributor of Hawks Fan TV. Make sure you go get this dude a follow. Really interesting stuff. Always really fun on Twitter, especially in post games at Hawks Fan TV. Got a pretty good crew over there too that like to chime in and talk about, the Hawks being diehard fans and things of that nature as well. So definitely want to give them a shout out. Doing yourself a disservice if you're not going over there and checking out the work that he's doing. Talking about work that people are doing, Dyson Daniels being one of them. He's been really, really good, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball as well as the defensive side. Starting to see, that more of that defensive only side, if that even makes any kind of sense. Definitely got some offense to go along with it as DeAndre and Bogey is coming back. Got some guys settling into their roles. You don't see as much offense. How much of the most improved player, we know he's leading the league in steals and deflections and all this other stuff. How realistic is it that we could begin to have conversations about potentially him for most improved player and maybe even DeAndre Hunter, perhaps? I know it sounds crazy, for potentially sixth man of the year.
Yeah. Shout out to Dyson, man. And funny, you said, you brought up Dyson first because I saw the tweet right before the show. And someone said that Bogey in like a post-game presser, he said that Dyson Daniels has motivated the whole team to play defense. So that was a funny little quote that I saw. But yeah, Dyson brings it every single night on the defensive side. And that was really what he was brought for, because I know we were hoping to get that in DeJounte, but it didn't really pan out that way. But Dyson knows his role, and he doesn't care if he's scoring. Some nights he barely even shoots. But he's always going to bring the defense. Even tonight, he had 3 steals again, so he's just adding on to his league-leading steal total. So I think for MIP for Dyson, because his points kind of have taken a drop back from what we saw. Because I know in the beginning of the season he was on fire and he looked like a clear runaway for MIP, but his point production is kind of taking a step back. So I don't know if he's going to win. Some people are saying maybe even Jalen can even get that MIP too, funny enough, because he didn't qualify last year with the injuries. But, and then but if Dyson can just keep up the great defense, I certainly think a All-NBA defensive award accolade is definitely on the horizon for him. And he could still win, very well likely, maybe win MIP too. So we'll see. Hopefully he keeps it up. And then Dre for the sixth man, in my opinion, like, obviously he hasn't played as many games because, he was injured. So guys like Peyton Pritchard and things like that probably are in the, favorite right now. Mm-hmm. But if Dre can just keep playing games, and if he can give us at least, 60 games this season, just give us 60 to 65 games and doing it at the production that he's doing it right now, because he's averaging 19 points a game for us. He's averaging 19 points a game of the season on really, really good efficiency, 40% plus from 3, 48, I believe, % from the field last time I checked. So he's doing it. He's having the best season of his entire career this season in year 6. So I'm really, really happy for Dre. I wouldn't consider myself a Dre truther for his whole career by any means, because I've definitely had my fair share of criticism.
Same.
But he's really shutting guys like me up. So
Same.
I'm happy for Dre. Yeah, and we've seen this from DeAndre. We've seen stretches where he can get hot and he can give us 18, 19, 20 points a game. And then some nights he'll just be an absolute no-show. But I don't know what's changed with him. Maybe because he had a kid and he's a father now, but he looks different. And I feel like I say that every year whenever he has these little stretches where he plays great and he looks like a top 4 pick in the draft. But he's doing it. He's doing it right now, and he's having the best best season of his career. And I'm very pleased. So I'm happy to eat my words. And I know Dre was one of the hot names every year at the trade deadline. Hawks would be like, it's time to trade DeAndre, give up on Dre. But he's shutting a lot of us up.
Yeah, for sure. And not only is he looking different, but this is a Hawks team that's also kind of giving a little bit of a different feel. We don't want to get too excited, make it seem like, there's going to be a parade on Peachtree Street or anything like that, but it's definitely kind of feeling different, a different, kind of a vibe in the way they've been playing. I mean, being a team like Milwaukee that a lot of people expected to come into the season this year and be a contender for a championship. Same thing with Cleveland, where people didn't necessarily have those expectations, but certainly after the season started, being one of those teams as well, and also beating Boston. I mean, the Hawks have their fair share, sure, of some losses that they shouldn't have lost, one of them being Washington and maybe a couple other teams, but certainly some wins that people didn't expect for them to kind of string together either. So shout out to the bench, DeAndre Hunter, and even, Bogey obviously playing well. Onyeka usually plays pretty good against Giannis every time they play the Bucks, and definitely things are certainly looking up. I want to give some credit to Zachary Risachet as well, because he just always finds a way to be in the right place at the right time. Elite movement without the ball, always finding a way to get to the cup and find a way to just catch his defender snoozing for some reason. So on the other side of the break, we're kind of going to get into the game ahead before we get up out of here. Obviously, that being the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James coming to town after they take a butt whooping by about 40 points plus to the Miami Heat on tonight. But first, let's go ahead and pay some bills, and we'll get into that on the other side of the break. So, as you know, obviously it's Christmas time, and we all have been there before. We spend a little bit more money than we should during the holidays. I guess we got Christmas presents to buy for so many different people, and that is why today's episode of the Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by the one and the only Chime. There are instances where we tend to spend so much, and then next thing you know, we end up overdrafting. Well, that doesn't necessarily happen with Chime. Exactly. How is that? Let me explain to you. So you can take control of your finances by using a Chime checking account with features like no monthly or maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft of up to $200. Of course, getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Chime is one of those programs in which, it's eligible for members to get complimentary boosts to temporarily increase a friend's spot me limit if possible. When you give a boost, they can boost you back to temporarily raise your particular limit, and you can get spotted on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Helps you with your fee-free overdraft of up to $200. No monthly fees or maintenance fees. Remember that. And over 50,000 fee-free ATM. So be sure to set up your direct deposit in your Chime account. After a qualifying direct deposit of $200+, Chime will notify you to enroll in Spot Me. Enjoy the holidays while keeping your financial goals on track with Chime. Be sure to open up your account in 2 minutes only at chime.com/NBA. That's chime.com/NBA. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank. Members FDIC. Spot Me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Direct deposit timing depends on submission of excuse me, on submission of payment file. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in SpotMe and are subject to monthly limits. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs and for OTC withdrawals. Alex, before we get up out of here, we probably got about 3 or 4 minutes left. As I kind of teased before the break, Los Angeles Lakers getting ready to come to town. LeBron James and the guys. I know one guy that's been pretty hot and heavy all over the place over the last couple of weeks has been the rookie and Dalton Connect as well. Give me some keys to victory for the Atlanta Hawks if they aim to add to their win streak to go from the number 5 now to the number 6 games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be similar to what I had going into the Bucks game. We already know AD is going to get his. We know LeBron is going to do LeBron things. So really, it's keeping like the guys like Austin Reeves in check. D'Angelo Russell coming off the bench. I would hate. It gives me PTSD because I feel like this could be one of those games where D'Angelo comes off the bench and he goes crazy against us or something like that. But we just got to keep those in check, keep AD off the glass. And I think I really like our chances, right? I mean, I think top to bottom, our roster is better than the Lakers personally. I know it's going to be a tough game because after this whooping that they just had against the Heat, they might have some sort of come to Jesus moment. And you already know LeBron's going to have his little LeBron talk with this team. So the fact that we're just the very next team after this whooping kind of worries me a little bit. But I'm confident we're back at home. We're riding a 5-game win streak. This team looks different, so I'm not really worried about this Lakers team personally. I think our role players are better than their role players, and it's just all about making sure as long as AD doesn't score 50, 60 points against us, I like our chances. I also really quick, DeShaun, because I forgot to give a shout out to these two players in the last one for the Hawk for Thought segment, but. I was really hard on Onyeka Okongwu, much like many Hawks fans were.
Me too.
And a lot of people kind of were ready to pull the plug on him. We took him 6 overall, and he just kind of looks like he regressed. But he's improved a lot, especially during this win streak. He scored double-digit points in every single game in this win streak so far. So he's doing his thing off the bench. And then Ricochet, as you mentioned, he's scored double-digit points in 9 of his last 11 games. And then also has scored 5 straight double-digit points. So the Rook is looking like he's slowly starting to piece everything together. Now that he's had 20-some games at the NBA level, it looks like his game is starting to acclimate well. So I got to give a shout out to those two players. But yeah, man, I think with this Lakers team, I'm confident. Trey's going to do Trey things. I think they don't really have anyone on the wing or perimeter that can really stop like a Jalen Johnson type of player. So I'm confident. I think we take this game and we make it 6 in a row.
No, it sounds good to me, and it sounds just about right. Just control what you can control, limit those turnovers, take care of that baby, the basketball, obviously, and keep doing whatever that you've been doing, getting on the ground after loose balls, creating second chance points, hitting the glass hard, and just playing fearless Hawks basketball. And if we could just do our part as Atlanta Hawks fans and, kind of silencing that the crowd for whatever reason, so many people, it's a melting pot here in Atlanta, as we know. So keeping some of those people who love to come here and that they're going to be wearing their purple and gold and, chanting on MVP when LeBron or whoever goes to the free throw line and whatever else, what have you. But I think that the Hawks are going into this thing confidently. And who knows, maybe Trae Young is just reeling, people into thinking that he's not this scorer anymore all of a sudden and kind of using that as bait to some degree for the homework or for the report for the opposing team. And the next thing you know, he kind of goes off and becomes this Trae Young that we know him to be again. But I'm good with this Trae Young as long as it continues to add a number to the left side of the result column, more victories. That's 5 in a row now for the Atlanta Hawks, going for 6 on Friday against the Los Angeles Lakers. Remember, check my dude out, Alex. I thank you so much, man, for just stepping in the clutch and the crunch moments and showing some love. Make sure y'all go and check him out. He's the creator, contributor, everything of Hawks Fan TV. Really great intel, great insight, great content, great everything, especially social media. Follow him at Hawks Fan TV, at hawksfantv.com, where you can read some really good pieces by him. So appreciate you for coming in and showing some love to us, and everybody that has done the same thing. We'll see you guys in about 48 hours as we get prepared for the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll see you after the game, and have a good night. A-Town down.
Yes, sir.